Alright, welcome back to Flight Sim 2020. As you can see, today we're back in the Hype H145 because I've had a couple of people who have asked me how to actually go about creating your own missions for the mission system, the action pack that comes with the Hype Airbus H145. So I'm going to do a little bit of a showcase kind of tutorial thing, I guess, on how to set up your own missions. Of course, you can always jump into the aircraft and get it to quickly generate a mission for you. But if you want to do something a little bit more specific, there's a couple of different ways that you can create your own custom scenarios. So because we're more looking at the scenarios today, I'm just going to jump into the aircraft and I'll get it started up, and then I'll cut the video to when we actually start dealing with the mission. So that's the plan for today. Let's jump in and I'll see you again when we are ready to accept our mission. Alright, so here we are with our 145 started up and ready for takeoff. We are on the ground at the ultimate heliport in Midrand, Johannesburg. And what I want to do today is generate a mission that takes us out into Pretoria and then to one of the hospitals in Pretoria and then back here to ultimate heliport in Midrand. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down to the tablet, and of course we're going to go to maps and missions. Now, like I said, you can always go to the mission library and choose from one of the existing ones. So obviously for multiplayer you need to be doing a multiplayer mission. For this you need the Aerosoft North Sea scenery, but for hams and offshore you can just choose and actually have the system generate a random mission for you itself. So if I just pick a hospital patient transfer, it's going to pick 2 hospitals in the area around. You can kind of choose how far away you want it to be, and it's going to pick 2 hospitals and you're going to have to fly a patient between the hospitals. Or we can pick a road accident and it's going to once again you specify a distance and it's going to generate a road accident somewhere around the area for you. But if we want to be a bit more specific, we go back here and we can say connect to scenario editor on my PC. And now that we've done that, what we need to do is open up the Hype Operations Center app and go to the mission editor here on the side. And this gives us a whole bunch of options to create our own custom missions, and you can save those custom missions and fly them whenever you want. So there's a couple of different ones. So we get transport, which is just going to be normal, like your kind of VIP transport. You can pick a helipad or an airport and fly in between them. Military is obviously this similar thing, but you're going to fly to military bases. And it can actually use information from the street maps to pick up these different areas, roads, military bases, farms, golf courses, forest, that kind of thing, depending on the mission that you've picked. So we're going to do a rescue mission. So we're going to be looking at these 2 today. For these, you've got firefighting. And I'm going to kind of explain the difference between these 2 that say custom and these 2 that are a little bit more specific. At the bottom for offshore, you've got zones where it'll generate, I think it's either like a boat or someone just out in the ocean, and you've got to go hoist them and bring them to probably a hospital. I haven't done much of the offshore stuff. I normally do the hams missions, which is what we're going to do today. Offshore transport is going to be oil rigs and things like that, or possibly a ship. I think it's mostly like oil rigs and stuff. The difference between these 2 here that say custom is if we pick custom, we need to put the injured person for a rescue mission, ambulances, that kind of thing, choose a hospital. You kind of pick exact locations for those items. So if you want to make a very specific mission where you know exactly where you want to pick up the patient, choose custom. With zones, you specify an area and you can make it kind of as big as you want, and it will pick a location inside that area. So this is if you really want fine control and you know exactly where you want to place everything. If you're trying to make a specific story or a specific mission, that's what you'll use. If we just want to have it more random, kind of like it would be in the real world, to say we are operating in this area, pick a place for a car accident to happen, pick a place or pick a hospital in that area for us to take the patient to, that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to click on plan. And now, first things first, let's zoom all the way out because we always start in the US. And if your helicopter is connected to the scenario editor, you should see your helicopter's icon on the map so we can zoom in. So we need to place 3 things, and it tells us up here. We need an accident zone, we need a hospital zone, and we need a start location. So the accident zone is where is the accident going to happen, and within that zone it's going to pick a point based on some parameters that we're going to set. The hospital zone is where it's going to pick a hospital for us to deliver the patient to once we've picked them up, and obviously the start zone is where we start from. So let's put the start zone on our helicopter because that's where we're starting, and we're going to end at the same place as well, so I like to drop that there. If you wanted to end off at a different airport, you could do that by placing the end location at whichever airport you want to end up at. So the start and end, we give specific locations. We're going to say this is the airport we're going to take off from, and this is the airport we're going to land at once we are done. Next, let's go and pick the accident zone up here. So I want to generate a mission in Pretoria. So we're going to click and drag, and everything that fits inside that circle is considered part of our accident zone. The other thing that we can do is once you've placed an area or a zone, you can go and move it. We can also place multiple zones. So all of these zones will be considered part of our area that we can generate accidents in. To make our life a little simpler today, let's maybe just work with one accident zone. So I'm just going to get rid of those, and we do that by clicking the little trash can icon over there. So let's go and place a nice decent sized accident zone here over Pretoria and covering some of Centurion and out to these areas here as well, kind of around Pretoria, something like that. That'll work. Right, now we get some more choices inside this box over here. So the location, we can say pick a random point. Now this doesn't actually query the street map data, meaning it'll just pick a random point somewhere on the ground. It could be in the middle of a river, it could be out in the middle of nowhere, it could be on a street, it could be in a building, right? If we want to be a bit more specific, we need to actually query the data. So we can say pick closest, which is going to pick the closest, I think, to the center of the circle of any of those. But I find that this one kind of gives you the most random point of the data we've chosen. So I'm going to pick that, and then we can say what do we want to pick. So if we're going to generate a car accident, we're going to pick something like roads. Okay, road intersections would be a good one. You can say we only want it on highway, we only want it on primary roads, maybe dirt tracks if you want like a dirt road accident. Let's maybe do something like that. If you're creating transport missions, you could do things like helipads, airports, hospitals, helipads except hospitals, that kind of thing. If you're doing more like industrial accidents or farm accidents, we've got farmlands, forests. If you're doing like hiking accidents, residential areas. So you can pick, and it's actually going to look at the map and detect these areas, which is kind of cool. So let's go and pick a dirt track. So it's going to look for some kind of like rural roads and find an accident that's happened out there. I strongly recommend that you do a test query because it's going to tell you how many results it's actually found. Unfortunately, we don't have all the information for all the areas in the world, meaning there might be some places where we just don't have the information about what types of roads and what areas are around here. So testing the query, if it's taking this long, it's probably finding a whole bunch. This is actually going to tell us how many of these track roads it's detected, and there we've got quite a lot. So when we 911, brilliant. When we generate this mission, it's going to pick randomly one of those points to be our accident site where we need to go and pick up our injured person. Then we can choose the type of accident. So car crash, different car crashes will have different models. Motorcycle crash, again, I want this to be semi-realistic in terms of it generating us a mission. So let's just choose random, right? Then the last thing we need to do is specify a hospital zone. So we're going to say, well, give us a hospital somewhere in Pretoria. We could change it up and say, well, actually we want to go to a hospital in Johannesburg. So find us a hospital over there. Maybe let's do that just to demonstrate. Okay, we're going to test this query as well. So again, find all the hospitals and choose one for us to go to. Now this, again, makes sense. We don't want to query for industrial buildings. We want to query for helipads, hospital, which is the default. When you test, it shows the results under both. So just ignore that one. Let's test this query and see that it actually picks up some hospitals inside Johannesburg. Right, and there it's got 7 for us. So it's going to pick one of those. At this point, we are done. All we need to do to load this in the helicopter is click save. And if we jump back to Flight Sim, we can now close this mission briefing because we haven't actually typed any briefing out, so nothing comes up there. We can close that, and now our mission has been generated. So if we zoom out, we have an accident site. Okay, the mission was still loading. So if we zoom out, there's our accident site, and that will be loaded into our GPS as well. So if we come across here and we set this over to DMAP, we should have a route there for us to fly as well. Cool, there's our GPS route. So now all we have to do is follow the instructions. So it says fly to the accident scene. So we're gonna go pick up that injured person. We can do an off-site landing to load them up, or we can hoist if we need to, depending on the site. So let's fly out there, see what it looks like, and decide whether we're gonna land or whether we're going to hoist. So at this point, we follow this mission as normal. We're gonna fly out, pick up the passenger. It's then gonna tell us which hospital to go to. I think we get to choose whether we accept the hospital or if we should switch to another one. But we can accept the hospital location, fly to the hospital. Once we've done that, we fly back to wherever we specified the endpoint. So if you were just here for a quick tutorial on how to set up your mission, you're pretty much done at this stage. Now you would just fly it in the sim. If you want to stick around, I'm actually going to fly the mission from start to finish. So let's go ahead and take off from here at Ultimate Helipods. Okay, there we go. Making our way out towards Pretoria, and of course we can follow our GPS. So it obviously fully integrated with the GPS. If we engaged our autopilot in nav mode, it would follow that course perfectly out to the accident zone. Okay, so we've got about 13 minutes of flight time out to this accident. And again, because we chose random, we don't know. It could be a car crash. It could be a motorcycle accident. So we'll have to see when we get there. And of course, if you own the H145, this mission system is one of the best ways to kind of give some purpose to your flying, particularly if you're not like someone who wants to fly airliners and fly for a virtual airline or something like that. This gives you a more kind of mission-based or mission goal in the simulator. And of course, if you want to simulate being a rescue pilot, we can do the same thing for firefighting and for offshore transport and stuff like that. This is a great way to have more randomly generated missions like you kind of would in the real world. Okay, 10 minutes to go. So once we get there, what I want to do first is just come down here and just dial in my kind of standard decision height of 200 feet. If anything looks bad at that point, we would just abort our landing. But we'll get there, assess the area, decide, do we need to hoist, or we're just going to do an offside landing. If you want to hoist, there's a hoist option that will appear here on the tablet in the mission system. So you can just click on that option to say that we're going to be doing hoisting, and then it goes through the hoist process. You can obviously have your hoist set to auto, which I've got, because my understanding is obviously you would have someone sitting in the door there who would operate the hoist. If you have it bound to your HOTAS or something, or you want to do it manually, you can operate the hoist manually as well. And that's obviously all done in the settings over here. The other thing is you have settings for the mission. So I like to turn the smoke flares off. Mission fire quality is set to high, so the fire looks a little bit better. Obviously you need the Maverick DLC. And then mission waiting time I set to realistic, which means we would actually sit on the ground for a realistic amount of time for them to load the patient up into the helicopter or hoist them up to the chopper. If you don't want to just sit on the ground waiting, you can change that to a lower setting if you would like. Okay, the flares I just think are too obvious. Like you can really see it from very far away. It's a massive orange cloud. They do come in useful sometimes if you're doing like you'll see when we head back to the hospital. Now it's picking up information from the map that there is a helipad at that hospital. Obviously in the scenery there probably isn't, particularly in a place like South Africa. If you're going to a city that has received like a world update and has higher quality data for the city, there might actually be a helipad there. If there isn't, we just kind of have to land on the ground somewhere near it. Sometimes in that case it makes life a lot easier to have the smoke flare so you can see where the helipad is, because it might just be a flat piece of ground, or not. It's actually not flat, which is the biggest issue, but it's just going to be a random texture on the floor. But if you kind of look around and you look closely at the map, I've generally been able to figure out where they are. But if you want smoke flares, go for it. You have the option to do that. Oh, I was actually looking for the options for the hoist, which I think are here under aircraft, in equipment. Oh, that just turns the hoist on and off. There we go. No, that's just whether we can see it or not. I know it's in here somewhere. Try not to crash while I'm messing around with settings.
Warning, terrain.
Okay, I can't remember, but somewhere in here you can choose Oh, there it is in autopilot. So I've got my hoist control set to auto so that it works like our crew are operating the hoist for us. Right, just a couple of minutes out. The accident scenes are generally easier to find because you're normally going to have a bunch of emergency vehicles around. So you should see the flashing lights. If you really want a challenge, do this at night and do something like a hiking accident, a farmland accident, or a car crash that's not out in the city. That makes it nice and challenging. Then you've got to use like the searchlights and spotlights and things to actually be able to see what's going on. Obviously, the emergency vehicles with their lights on at night are even easier to spot, but actually being able to find a good place to land in that is quite a challenge, and that's quite fun. Right, still about 5 minutes to go. There's the Pretoria CBD out that way. What I'm probably going to do is cut out the full cruise, or maybe I'll just time-lapse the cruise from the accident scene all the way out to Johannesburg, because that's going to be a good 25-30 minutes probably. Yeah, so if we look at our map, we're just other side this main road, and what I think, is that a train track or a power line maybe? And you can see these dark blue H's are hospitals, and the grey ones are helipads, if I remember correctly. Or was it the other way around? No, I think the grey ones are just helipads, the blue ones are hospitals, and obviously these little blue ones with the line are airports. Okay, so it looks like we're just going to be other side the ridge, I believe. Okay, we can probably start slowing down. Okay, so we're other side this highway, and other side I think the power line's there. And again, this isn't going to be a main road, we chose a track, so it should be just like a smaller road, possibly even just a little dirt road, kind of like this on the side here. So out more into the rural areas now, on the outskirts here. Right, still got a way to go. Here's the highway. Oops. This is the N4. I've also had a couple people ask me if you can do missions in the H160, and the answer is not yet. The action pack is coming for the H160, and I believe at that point you will be able to do missions. So you can actually do a custom mission like we've set up now for the H160. I tried it out to see out of curiosity if it would work, but it actually doesn't. It allows you to fly to the accident scene, and I think you can pick up, you can only do transport, you can't do any of the HEMS or firefighting stuff. But you pick up the passengers when you get to the destination, it doesn't register and they don't disembark. So yeah, it's not currently supported with the 160, but of course it will be once they have added that. All right, so we're looking for an accident out here somewhere. This is an interesting pattern here. Okay, much more out into the rural area. So it's somewhere out in the forest here, which means we might actually end up doing a hoist. But there must be a road. Okay, there's a dirt road down there. So it's probably along that road somewhere. Oh, there's another little track here. Oh, yeah, I can see the vehicles out there. Right, so it's on that little track. So we can pretty much... yeah, we can do an off-site landing here rather than a hoist. So I think that's what we'll do. And I normally like to do a bit of an orbit of the scene just to get an idea of obstacles and things. Check out the wind. So the wind is coming from straight in front of us. So we're going to want to circle around, and I think we'll land... the wind's going to blow us this way, so we'll land on the right-hand side of the fire engines, so that if it does blow us when we take off, it blows us away from the vehicles. And I was thinking about putting my gear down because I've been flying the 160. Obviously in this guy we don't have to do that. Yeah, I want to kind of put us parallel to that fire engine so we're facing a little more into the wind.
Caution, terrain.
Looks a little flatter, a little bit further forward. Okay, now what we need to do is pop the engines into idle. And there's the option to switch to hoisting if we wanted to do that. Once our engines start to idle, our crew should jump out. There we go. And he should actually get out and wheel a stretcher over. So he's going to take the stretcher across now to pick up the patient. I don't know why they closed the doors at this point. We would probably just leave them open. Yeah, he's going to walk through the fire engine, but we will just ignore that. Okay, that's quite a bad car crash. So there he is. He's going to load up the patient onto the stretcher. don't know how you managed to have that bad a car crash on a little dirt track like this, but anyway. Okay, because I've got it set to realistic, we're going to wait a couple minutes, because in reality they had obviously stabilized the passenger, load them onto the stretcher and all of that cool stuff. So normally what I would be doing at this point is just checking systems on the helicopter, maybe planning routes, looking at how we're going to make our way back towards Johannesburg and possibly which hospital we're going to be heading towards, checking weather, that kind of thing. And cool, there he is now making his way back to the helicopter. And the whole thing of him changing colors, I mean his suit's changing colors is just to do with the textures of the livery. The guy who actually gets out and walks is a different like model to the ones who sit inside. So that's why he changes to orange, even though these guys have blue suits on. Right, if we come down here, it's now given us a hospital to fly to. Okay, so I see it doesn't give us the option to choose a hospital or accept a hospital. It's just said that's where you're going. So we're heading to, what hospital is this? It's the one in Brixton. Oh, I don't know exactly which hospital this is, but it doesn't say, but that's where we're going. Right, so now we can come back down here, pop the engines back into flight, wait for them to stabilize. Let's go ahead and set our decision height. Ooh, not the barrow. Decision height to 100 feet for our takeoff. So this is the kind of stuff I'd be doing while he's loading the patient. I think it only generates your waypoint and chooses a hospital after the patient is loaded into the chopper. Okay, everything is stable. Let's go ahead and take off. We will do a straight out departure because we're going into the wind, and then turn right and head back towards Pretoria and out to Johannesburg. Okay, everything looks good. Yeah, it's telling us about 20 minutes flight. To the hospital in Joburg. So not quite as long as I thought. Okay, as we pick up speed, that's going to come down as well. So we're down to about 16 minutes already.
Okay, so we're about 5 minutes out. We can now see the Joburg CBD on the skyline. I'm going to disengage the altitude hold and just give us a bit more altitude here because we're only 400 feet radio, so we should be... Technically, I think the rules are about 1,000 feet. So we're just going to climb a little bit so we don't annoy everyone. Right, 2 minutes. We should probably do our best to avoid flying into the Brixton Tower. Or SABC for that matter. Okay, autopilot is completely disengaged now. That's SABC off on our left, and this tall thing in front of us is the Brixton. Right, now this is the tricky part. We need to find the hospital here. So this big building, it could be, I think it's just on the other side here. Well, we're pretty much straight over it, so we need to find a landing place over there. Okay, so it's other side of the highway. Okay, so it's not that big building that I was looking at. It's on the other side of the highway, or the main road, I suppose. The wind is coming from that side.
Caution, terrain.
So this kind of, I think that's the helipad there. We're gonna have to land somewhere around there. Can we actually get the helicopter in there? Not really. We can land on this open patch here, which is probably where, well, there should actually be a building here, or a parking lot, which is probably where the helipad actually is in any case. I'm not exactly landing into the wind, but I think this will do. Okay, so this is what I meant about there not actually being a helipad at the point. but you can kind of figure it out. There's normally some sort of space because in reality, oh, you can actually see the little marker over there. That is what emits the smoke. The little marker's still there even if you have no smoke. So this is exactly where the helicopter, where the helipad is. So like I was saying, there's normally some sort of space because it'll be either a nice flat building that you would land on or a parking lot. So generally it's okay. Right, same thing again. Oh no, in the H145 the engine controls are down here. Let's put the engines into idle. And we'll wait for our crew to offload the passenger and wheel them randomly out into the middle of nowhere. So again, he's going to get out and just offload the passenger. What I mean is he's just going to kind of walk off with them as if he was handing them over to the hospital staff. I think he goes that way. Wait for the doors to close again. Oh, no, it's coming this way. Okay, now that he's done handing over the patient, we can put the engines back into flight, and we have a message that says we need to return to base. So we're going to make our way back to Ultimate Heli, and we have therefore, or at that point, we've completed the mission. So engines are stable. Let's go ahead. Everything looks pretty clear. I think we're actually one over to the left where we started. But it's fine. We can take this one. Right, and that should be our mission complete. We just need to do this. And there we go. So I'm not going to go through the whole shutdown process. Probably could have parked a little bit further forward, but we did kind of start a little bit back as well, because it's quite close to the building. But anyway, that is going to bring us to the end of the video. I hope that if you were looking for some insight into creating some custom scenarios for you to fly some rescue missions and things like that in the HPG H145, hopefully this has given you a little bit of insight into how to do that and allow you to add a bit more purpose to your flying in Flight Sim. If you made it all the way to this part of the video, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it or found it useful, you know what to do down below, and I'll see you in the next one.